Lost in time, the Amazon rainforest has been the home for the most bizarre and abnormal. Let's dive into this terrifying jungle that shows us how truly scary nature can be. A hidden base was found in the Amazon belonging to a very specific hate group of people from World War II. Argentina was a well-known country to harbor a lot of people fleeing Europe in 1945. This was due to the fact that at the time, Juan Perón, who was in control of Argentina at this time, was a sympathizer and allowed this specific group to seek refuge here. Researchers discovered bizarre artifacts in 3 buildings, which included German coins and fragments of a porcelain plate, all dating back to the specific era. It was meant to be used as a refuge if anything were to happen, but apparently they just never got the chance to use it. Despite other findings in the base, they're also not throwing out the idea that it could have belonged to another group as well, and respectfully not jumping to conclusions just yet. Others, however, didn't feel that way, and stood proud on their belief by stating, "We can find no other explanation as to why anyone would build these structures at such great effort and expense, in a site which at the time was totally inaccessible, away from the local community, with material which is not typical of the regional architecture." El Hoyo, or the Eye when translated to English. The Earth creates and showcases bizarre anomalies every day, and this is one of them. Discovered and recorded as recently as 2003, a giant, perfectly circular floating island is living its best life, moving back and forth in its secluded little world. It's settled in South America's second longest river, the Parana. Floating islands are not an uncommon thing, but because of how perfectly carved out this piece of land is, with its bizarre movements of changing its location within its pond, has sparked the curiosity of researchers and scientists everywhere. It is extremely pretty to look at and witness. The first person to discover it, though, wasn't a scientist or a researcher, but rather an Argentinian filmmaker by the name of Sergio. It was completely accidental as well, since his goal was to find the perfect spot to film a paranormal video, and he kind of got that with this. Not really thinking much of it the first time, it wasn't until the second time he came around that he noticed it was no longer in its original spot. It had moved. Despite it only being properly noted down in 2003, no one really knows when this strange anomaly had originated in time, leaving it to be one of the Earth's greatest mysteries. If you haven't heard of Percy Fawcett yet, I don't blame you. So let me introduce you to one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the Amazon jungle. Percy was the inspiration for Indiana Jones, if it wasn't obvious with his starking blue eyes and his very appealing adventurous getup. But besides him looking the part, Percy's objective was to create a giant map of the Amazon, completely landscaping the forest in all its shape and glory. Despite having this as one of his goals, deep down he had hoped that by doing this, he would one day discover ancient civilizations that lived within the dense jungle. There was already proof within the pudding with other encounters he had throughout his explorations with indigenous locals, but there had to be something more. The topic of El Dorado had been a buzz for centuries up to this point, and he was for sure going to be the first one to discover it. This new objective almost drove him to obsession, with him stating, "We shall return, and we shall bring back what we seek." So freaking cool. And so it began. On April 20th, 1925, he teamed up with his 21-year-old son Jack and one other friend, and together this magnificent trio began their journey. Despite the jungle being so incredibly dense, Percy persevered, always the one up in front getting through any thick brush that came their way. Things took a dark turn for the worse though, because the last we've ever heard of Percy and his son was the findings he passed over to his wife, and one single letter saying they would return soon. That was the last of them. Did you know there are Sasquatches in South America? Percy Fawcett himself also recorded talking about coming across such creatures in his findings, also known as the Maricoxi. These are large hairy creatures that are allegedly hostile and extremely territorial. Percy noted his sightings down in 1914, just 11 years before he disappeared from existence, calling them highly intelligent creatures despite using primitive equipment such as bows and arrows. If they ever see you, it's on sight. They will not hesitate to come after you if you are within their territories. Percy noted down that the only way that they communicate is with grunts and groans, much like regular monkeys, rather than any other languages that the locals might speak. There was one night as well that the explorer recalled where the Maricoxi tried to sabotage one of their camps, but thankfully Percy and his gang were both prepared to scare off the Sasquatch monsters with their own personal equipment, the loud noises immediately scaring them off. People are speculating, however, survivor. Ever since Percy's strange disappearance, to this day people wonder if it was the Maricoxi that explained why he went missing. What are the chances that Percy traveled too far into the jungle and stumbled upon their village? If you are not too careful, one step could lead to absolute travesty. Hidden within the shadows of the Amazon jungle, let's take a look to see what terrifying anomalies have made themselves known in recent years. The Amazon is vast and mysterious, so it's no surprise that it harbors literal tribes that have had no contact with the outside world. Well, very minimal, because you know us, we just love to get ourselves involved with other people's business. There are believed to be over 100 of these tribes in the Amazon, and based on previous circumstances with trying to reach out to them and ending in complete disaster, the governments in the area thought it would be best to just leave them be. Some of these tribes seem to have also resulted from past human atrocities, having them escape up the river and create their own little sanctuary. There is also the very intriguing nomadic hunter-gatherers called the Awa, who have been reported to build fully functional homes within hours, only to completely abandon them within a week. Which makes sense to us as humans and animals. Once you've taken up resources you could find, you gotta continue to move and find more. Others choose to create a foundation, really utilizing the land they already have and continue to grow it, keeping it prosperous for generations to come. With the rapid changes of our planet though, and our need to take down gigantic ecosystems for capitalistic gain, who knows how much longer they will be able to survive out there. The Silkhenge of the Amazon, or also known as the mysterious picket fence. These weren't discovered all too long ago, but the strange appearance of these weird multi-legged web creations had left scientists baffled for a long time as to who or what could have created these. They weren't like your typical webs either, and it got even weirder when some researchers discovered tiny spiders emerging from the tiny sac within the middle of the structure. One researcher stated, "For one, it is not common for spiders to lay eggs and abandon them. They typically place silken egg sacs in their own web to protect. More oddly, it appears that there was only a single egg per structure. This, as far as we can tell, would be the only known occurrence of a spider laying a single egg per egg sac. We saw a few adult spiders around that were prime suspects, but never saw any making it, so the construction and culprit remain a mystery." It is quite bizarre. It is some new age web creation that somehow keeps the egg protected in the center with all the white pillars around it, but it also produces a very strong chemical smell that lures in meals to get stuck within them so that the spiders have something to eat once they're born. Terrifyingly cool. The Brazilian grape tree is the most bizarre looking piece of plant life I have ever seen, because it grows its fruit along its branches and its trunk. From far away, you'd probably mistake it for bugs, but it's just an insane amount of fruit covering it from head to toe. Usually out in nature, this tree could only really sprout fruit once or twice a year, but in a proper system where it's properly cared for regularly, it can sprout all year round. You can eat these things raw, or you can turn them into drinks, but because of its extremely short shelf life, finding fresh Brazilian grape tree fruit is rare if you are not living in a location where it's cultivated. It also surprisingly has insane health benefits by providing not only anti-inflammatory compounds, but it also has anti-cancer ones as well. Before it sprouts its fruit though, it covers itself in these puffy white flowers of sorts, kind of looking like a mix of fungi and snow from the base of the tree to the top. It's strange though, because although the top of the tree produces regular leaves, it also goes through this strange transformation to bear fruit. My theory is that it evolved to allow animals to get the fruit a lot faster, making it easier for the animals to then spread its seeds everywhere. Rafflesia, another plant that makes it to the top of the list of one of the world's stinkiest flowers. It also does not go through photosynthesis or has its own roots and stems. Imagine a plant not doing that. Not only does it have a strong, unpleasant odor, it's also an insanely strong organism. Despite it having a terrible smell, the buds are apparently edible to an extent, because there are still traces of toxic chemicals inside of them that can be harmful towards your health. When flowers are usually pollinated, you imagine as it being some sort of powder, right? This flower's pollen is actually a viscous liquid. This is to guarantee that the sticky substance remains on the flies that go into it, and making sure that it's carried for miles across the Amazon. I know what you're thinking, but how does it survive without photosynthesis? Well, that's because it is a parasite plant that thrives on using the life force from other plants, but it does not harm them. They kind of coexist coexist with one another, which is even more strange. It gets even weirder when you learn that this plant produces heat, which is extremely uncommon in any plant life anywhere. The Amazon is crazy. Do you have any Amazon anomalies that make you question our reality? Let me know down below, and I will see you all in the next video.